Gerald's Game, 2017 film directed by Mike Flanagan, who also went on to make Doctor Sleep and Haunting of Hill House, amongst other things. This one stars Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood and is based on a novel written by Stephen King. The premise is really simple. A woman goes away for the weekend with her older husband to a summer house in the middle of nowhere. They get comfortable, they get romantic, and they intend to get kinky. The husband handcuffs the wife to the bed in a sort of uncomfortable position and proceeds with the sexy stuff, but then falls dead from a heart attack, leaving her essentially trapped. She has to escape before she falls to exhaustion, dehydration, or other causes of death, one of which may be supernatural, as she seems to be getting haunted by a creepy presence, a sort of midnight man who may or may not have some connection to her childhood memories. So a really simple film on the surface. Most of it, save for an extended flashback sequence and some individual scenes, most of it takes place in a single room with essentially two actors, because the husband sort of comes back alive as a personified internal voice of the main character. So you have her lying on bed, and then an imagined version of herself and her husband sort of walking around the room arguing, etc. You know, visualize the internal voices. But it works quite well, the film does, for two reasons, I think. First of all, this simple premise is executed really well, with the challenges and solutions that the main character faces being realistic but at the same time compelling, with the conceit of this internal dialogue done quite well, and the performance is very convincing. And then the second reason, and the second layer of the film at the same time, is how it really delves into the idea of trauma leaving scars on people that later make you fall into certain traps. They make you fall into certain patterns which are unhealthy for you. How mistakes in life can be traced back to fucked up events from all the way back in the early childhood. The story goes really dark in that part, and the funny thing is, I didn't know going into it that this was based on a Stephen King novel. And as I was watching, at one point I thought to myself, this is really interesting, because the way the story explores this sort of casual, regular people, the sort of everyday evil, not the evil that wants to rule the world or destroy nations, but the evil that is small and selfish and present in everyday life, the evil that comes from the selfishness and hurting each other by extension of that. And as a result of that, you know, it's a really scary form of evil. And I thought it reminded me a lot of King's prose. In fact, I think that's one of his key strengths, to be able to tap into that darkness inside regular people's hearts. And then not 3 minutes later, a character says the offhand line, "All things serve the beam," which is a direct reference to the Dark Tower series. And I was like, okay, this is King after all. I like the way it builds tension and executes on it. I think it's a well-made thriller that also explores the darkness of childhood trauma and thematically becomes about overcoming it. The one thing that I didn't particularly enjoy is the ending of it, specifically one part, the resolution of the Midnight Man subplot. I get that it thematically fits with the rest of it, and it was kind of needed to make the point that it makes, but still I thought it removes a lot of the mystique and therefore the creepiness otherwise present in the film. Other than that though, it's still a surprisingly solid movie.